Welcome back to the Black Room. Dr Ef in the building, joined as always by the main man, Jas. This week we've got a very, very special guest, very special to me anyway. This is my brother, Mr. Michael Kamara.
Come on.
Nice to have you in the building. Thank you so much for joining us in here. We're gonna get into some very interesting topics, but before we do, the people need to know about you, man. So tell the people, to start from the beginning for us. Tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you grew up, where you went to school.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the introduction, guys. As I said, thank you for welcoming me here as well. I've seen what you guys are doing on Instagram and all the different socials, and must say that you guys are doing a fantastic and stellar job. So yes, Michael Kamara, born and raised in Southeast London.
South London, man.
Plumstead to be exact. I come from a family of, four siblings. My half sister, my twin brother, and my older brother. Yes, went to school in Southeast London, went to secondary school in Southeast London, and now I've moved out to Kent. But nevertheless, my mum's still in Southeast London, so
nice.
You know that's where I am most of the time. That's me.
Nice.
So
Southeast London, we're talking the 80s, I guess. Tell me a bit about Southeast London in the 80s.
Interesting times. I can definitely say that I lived through that period where Southeast London transitioned from being predominantly white, really, to start to include a lot more different cultures, races, and certainly different kind of ideas of what it is to be from London. You know, as I said, when I went to primary school in the early 80s, or kind of mid 80s, it was a time when, you started to see a wide variety of different people in my class. So I was quite fortunate, to be honest. My primary school class, if you're considering the demographics of London today, it probably is pretty similar. You know, we had a class of 30, maybe around about, 3 or 4 black children. We also had Indian, Chinese, and then also when you're considering I guess class as well, that varied quite a bit as well. So I would definitely say I came and kind of grew up in London at a very interesting time. Yeah.
So we went to primary school together. So I think your description of primary school is absolutely spot on. I think it's probably reflective of what London looks like now. Take us through onto secondary school. What was that like for you? Where'd you go?
So I went to Thomas Tallis Secondary School in Kidbrooke. Actually now it has moved sites slightly, so the old school, rest in peace Thomas Tallis, it did look a bit like a prison, but again that was it was quite a wide mix, because again you had a lot of children coming from the Blackheath side of Kidbrooke to come to attend, and then you also had the Ferry Estate, which is actually where my family, or when I was born, I was actually born in the Ferry Estate. We moved out after like a year or so, but there tends to be a lot of working class and again mixed kind of races and cultures that live within the Ferry Estate. So my secondary school was probably similar to my primary school, whereby you had a wide variety of different races, class, ethnic backgrounds, all that kind of thing.
Nice.
So,
And give me a bit more context about, so in this secondary school period as such, were you like very much an academic? Were you interested in stuff outside of school? What sort of stuff were you doing, and what sort of opportunities did you have to get involved in different activity, etc.?
It's a good question. I think when we started secondary school, we were heavily into football, both my twin brother and I. So we were, we went to secondary school with that kind of, we'd already started doing outside of school activities, as I said, Sunday league football and stuff like that, whereby we were mixing with different cultures already. So when we went to secondary school, we were ready for that, and we probably took that mentality into secondary school, and probably were met with what we expected, to be honest. So again, it was a lot of football, video games, all those kind of things, but really football. Primary school would tend to be a lot more other activities like clubs, kind of finding out what you're interested in, that kind of thing. But as soon as you hit secondary school, you kind of know, pardon me, exactly what it is. Football, video games, there's most stuff that most young teenagers are into.
And you said met with what we expected. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so I think if we're going to really get into the nitty gritty, I joined, say, my Sunday league team when I was about 9, 10, and prior to that, actually, just to give you a little bit of context, where we live in Plumstead, it's on the periphery of London, so you can literally walk into Kent in around about 10 minutes.
Okay.
So where my football team, my Sunday League football team was situated, it was around about 10-minute walk, but then a lot of the people that were there were of they tend to come from the Kent area, so it was a little bit different to what my twin brother and I were used to.
Sure.
In terms of the banter, in terms of the culture, it was a little bit different, and they were very welcoming mind. Let's I think we did quite well to adapt to that environment. But I think when we went to secondary school, kids were a little bit older, a little bit more harsh and what have you. So I think that enabled us to go into that environment and be like, we've seen this before. We're comfortable. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So where Plumstead is geographically located is not a million miles away from Eltham. And the time that you grew up and the time that you went to school, if you look at your time and your older brother's time, is around the time that Stephen Lawrence was killed in Eltham. So give us a sense of what it was like to be in and around South East London sort of at that time. Where were you when sort of that incident happened?
Okay. Actually, this is very close to home, to be honest, because the primary school that, the church that we went to on a Sunday was Trinity Methodist Church, and it was the same church that Stephen Lawrence went to and his family. So I remember his family very well. I remember some of them singing in the choir. We used to go to like the Sunday after school with his younger sister. I remember her very well. And at the time it hit, and it's funny you asked the question, because it hit me and my family more so than I realized at the time. Okay. And this is something that I've recognized over the last maybe 3 or 4 years. Prime example is that when it happened, first and foremost, I looked at my immediate family setup, and it was very similar to the Lawrence family setups in terms of age. So you consider his younger sister, very similar age to myself, my older brother, my older sister, because he also has a brother as well. They were very similar ages. So that, at the very first instance, that hit us, because we thought that could quite easily be us, And then if you fast forward, even to my kind of later school years, it was something that really impacted me, because I used to have to drive from, I'm 17, 18 now, driving. I used to have to drive from Plumstead over to, say, Lee, Kidbrooke, for a lot of my friends that lived around that area. And I used to avoid going down a certain route, the Well Hall Road, where he was murdered, and he had the plaque on the floor. I used to avoid it all the time, subconsciously. I didn't used to because I didn't used to want to face driving past the plaque. So I used to go, used to come from Lee, hit the Well Hall roundabout, and rather than going straight towards Shooters Hill, I used to take the other turning to go behind. And it was a very, very weird time, but obviously it impacted me for such a long time. I mean, we're talking, years after, where still it had an effect on me.
So fast forward us now. We finished secondary school, and we move on. What are we doing?
So right now, today, I am working for a defence and security think tank. I work within the kind of communication/membership team, working on database, kind of website integration, all that kind of thing. I also, so that's my 9 to 5. I also run an entertainment agency whereby I am the lead singer, director. Yeah, that's it. I basically.
What's
So yeah, MSK. No.
Yeah, plug it here. MSK Media. Plug it here.
Yeah, so MSK Media, MSK Entertainment. It's a thing that I tend to do on the weekends, whereby we put together entertainment for weddings, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, all that kind of thing, and then also on the side of that, MSK Media works kind of under that umbrella. So I tend to do a lot of videography, weddings, music videos, all that kind of thing. I'm just kind of venturing into that area now, so that tends to be taking up a lot of my money. But,
so there's a lot of stuff that comes with it. I think you have undersold, how well MSK does and what that's meant for you and your ability to travel. And I think that's something that we'll come on to a little bit later. Tell us about what your setup is like now. So married, kids, what's going on?
Yes, I've been married since September 2017. No kids at the moment. We live in Kent, both my wife and I. Quite fortunate to get on the property ladder, as I said. 2016 we bought, so just prior to our wedding. It's something that I'm very comfortable with at the moment. You know, people are always asking, particularly my mum, you know, what's happening with kids, all that kind of thing. But we're very comfortable enjoying our time as a married couple, you know. So at the moment we're just trying to kind of really enjoy ourselves.